Let's talk about T.S. Eliot. I came across his work. He's a literary giant, and I came across his work years ago, and there were a few lines in a particular poem that captured my interest and led me into some of his other work. He's most known for his poetry, and there are some powerful pieces of poetry. And you may not like poetry at all. You may love it. It doesn't matter. The lessons I'm going to share in this video are relevant regardless, and they're really powerful lessons about truth-seeking, problem-solving, and metaphorical and literal treasure hunting. So stay with me. I guarantee you will find something that is useful and practical for you in life and learning and work and treasure hunting as well. So before I get into those 5 quotes, though, I want to tell you the piece of poetry that captured my interest in T.S. Eliot originally. It's a piece from Choruses from the Rock in the 1930s, and it goes like this. He wrote, "Where is the life we have lost in living? Where is the wisdom we have lost in knowledge? Where is the knowledge we have lost in information?" And I became so intrigued by his work because of those lines. Where is the knowledge we have lost in information? And think about this being written in the 1930s. How much more true is this even today in this information-rich world where sometimes people conflate collecting information with actually being knowledgeable or wise? I don't know about you, but I would prefer to have someone who hasn't just gathered information about heart surgery, but I want someone who knows how to do heart surgery if I ever needed it. And that's true for us in a lot of aspects of life. And so this idea of information as this one level, but from information, it comes together to create a body of knowledge that has meaning and purpose. And from that knowledge, we use the knowledge in order to do good, in order to promote things that are true and good and beautiful, that are a blessing to others and benefit ourselves as well. And that's really the process of wisdom, is learning to make wise decisions, learning to use the knowledge and information and then the knowledge to make wise decisions. And that is a key to anyone who's trying to solve a problem, to seek and discover truth and treasure. That we have to be people who are cultivating not just information, we're not just sort of guessing with the information, but we're leading to meaningful bodies of knowledge and we're making wise decisions. And I think that's what these 5 quotes are going to do for you. So please stay with me as we dive into them now. So the first quote comes from 1950s. It was actually one of his lectures on poetry when he wrote, or maybe originally said, but I read it. He said that genuine poetry can communicate before it is understood. Now, there's a lot you could sort of unpack, and if there are literary people that are watching this, you maybe want to go into greater depth, but I'm just going to draw one simple kind of message or lesson from this idea and this statement. Part of what's powerful about poetry, it's a kind of treasure hunting when you're reading a poem, because there are often layers of meaning. And so you can understand the basic words, but then you kind of come to see how the words relate to one another and the messages and the pictures that they're painting. And then there are oftentimes multiple meanings and there are multiple layers of depth. And it's not like you just read the poem once and say, oh, I get it, and you move on. But there's a real benefit in pondering it and thinking about it over and over again and reading it and rereading it and then getting some background knowledge and information, and all of those kinds of things come together. And that is exactly how it works when we are trying to solve problems or discover truths or treasures, is that when you think you have an understanding, don't just stop when you first think you get it. That may not be it. There may be multiple layers. Sometimes you're at layer 1 and you've got the basic understanding, but maybe there are 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 layers of depth and knowledge and understanding that can be useful. Now, you don't want to obsess and always think that there must be one more layer, one more layer, one more layer. That can lead into all sorts of logical fallacies and cognitive biases as well, but acknowledge that there's greater depth than maybe what you see or what you appreciate right now. Think about it similarly to if I and a friend of mine who is a PhD in biology both go out and we see some beautiful piece of nature, and I look at it and I can appreciate it and I can see the beauty in it, but this biologist with more knowledge than I have and also some more wisdom they've cultivated, can notice things and understand multiple layers of depth and meaning beyond what I can when I see it. And that is true. And this is where we sometimes get hubris or arrogance that gets in the way of people trying to solve problems or treasure hunt, is they have one level of knowledge or understanding and they assume that's all there is. But there's more to be discovered that can give you insight and context and appreciation. Second one is this quote: "We had the experience, but we missed the meaning." So oftentimes we waste a good experience, a good success, a good failure. But when we experience different things, the key here is, can I extract some meaning from it? Can I discover sort of the purpose, the meaning in it? Can I learn something from it? Are there some lessons to be discovered? And sometimes we just sort of go through things. That's why I run into people sometimes who talk about how hard they've tried at something. They've worked really hard and they've tried over and over and over again. But if you just did the same thing over and over and over again, and there was really no kind of meditation reflection on the lessons learned and, well, what can I do differently this time? There's a more depth and intentionality to actually getting something out of the experience that you can take with you into the future, and it can benefit you, help you see things in a new way. And that's a really important lesson for us as well. Third one is this. It's from Four Quartets, and it says, "In my beginning is my end." Now, the idea behind this one is the "in my beginning is my end" is that how you start often impacts where you end up. So if you're trying to solve a problem or discover a truth or treasure, and you start with really narrow assumptions, and you already feel like you've got it figured out or half figured out, or you're really inflexible in your thinking, that you're going to narrow the options that you can consider and limit your ability to really discover something powerful at the end. So how you start matters. And what we want to do is start with a humility and an openness to learn. There's a movie from years ago with Steve Martin in it. It's called The Jerk, and I'm not promoting everything in the movie, but he was working in a circus at one point, and someone comes up to him and says, "Well, what can I win?" And I think there's like a ball you throw to knock over some bottles, and he starts by saying, "You can win anything on this wall, anything the top half of this wall, anything on this shelf, anything on the right side of this shelf, anything in this box, anything in the..." And by the end, it's like this little tiny corner of one box, and those are the prizes that you can win. And obviously that's hyperbole, but the idea, that is exactly, in an exaggerated way, exactly how we sometimes approach problem solving, treasure hunting, and truth seeking. Is we have limited ourselves at the start on what we're willing to consider, and we've narrowed things so much that our chances of really discovering things have been diminished by our own restrictions. So that's a good one to keep in mind. The fourth one is this: the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. That's so famous that it's almost cliche, but that's from Four Quartets. The end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. But there's a really powerful lesson and kind of intellectual truth for us to see in this, is that when we go on a journey of solving a problem, discovering a truth or a treasure, along the way, we become a bit of a different person. We become stronger, we develop clearer thinking, we gain new experiences, we build new allies and partners. There are all sorts of things that happen along the journey, so that even when we come back to a place that we've been before, we notice things that we didn't before. We appreciate things that we took for granted before. There's greater nuance. There's a kind of life experience of the journey that we bring back with us to that place. And so we can see it and appreciate it in a new way. And that is a lesson for us to take with us when we're trying to solve problems and treasure hunt. That's why you want to have a kind of cycling approach when you're trying to discover things, or if you're like working through clues or information, is you want to come back to the same thing. You can't just say, "Well, we already talked about that. We don't need to talk about it again. We already talked about it. Now we move on to the next thing, and then the next thing, next thing." No, you kind of have to cycle back to them, because it's not until you've gone down the road for a while and then come back to that first topic that you can see the things you really need to solve the problem, or to uncover that mystery that might have been, that thing that might have been hidden from you at the beginning. And I love that one. So powerful, so compelling. The fifth one is this: humankind cannot bear very much reality, also from Four Quartets. And this one is talked about in another video that I created on the fact that our brains oftentimes prefer comfort over truth. And so we will just stay in a mental place that's comfortable, even if it's maybe not actually true, just because it's easier for us to tolerate. And when we are trying to solve real problems, that is a problem. When we are trying to discover real treasures and we're not actually willing to face the hard realities, if that's where the truth leads, that's going to limit our ability to discover things. We have to be willing to look at all the options and to look around. It's like you have your keys that are lost in a room, and for some reason, you're not willing to look at a part of the room because it's messy, and you don't want to remember that it's messy and you have to clean it. So you just don't look over there for your keys, but then the keys are probably most likely in that mess. And so that is something that we want to make sure that we're aware of, and we can kind of work on being willing to face the reality, to follow the truth wherever it leads, even if it leads to some uncomfortable truths along the way. These are 5 lessons from a poet, a literary giant, that we can take in very practical ways and apply to our life and learning and truth-seeking and treasure hunting, and I hope you find it valuable. I look forward to your comments.